Aries, Ashe. Obatula, Ashe. Nila Hotep, Ashe. Anu, Ashe. Ptah, Ashe. Apollo, Ashe. Da, Ashe. Zaka, Ashe. Shango, Ashe. Makali, Ashe.
With Bobby Hemmitt here in St. Louis. Just wanted to do the interview dealing with the dark side, of course, because I know that's that's what you have brought to the quote-unquote conscious community. One of the first to bring it out, dealing with the occult, and I gotta give it up to you, man, because I remember when I first saw your lecture. The first lecture I saw was back in '97 of you, and I think it was the one you did with the Gathering of the Masters at Valentine's crib, and I was blown away. And as time went on, when you got to drop in on the got into really deep into the dark side, I was like, wow, now this is some new shit. And now, since we had you here in St. Louis, you dropped some new names on us, the new entities that came through, and this is some next level shit here, because how I see it, you know, it ain't the shit that our people just romanticizing with the deities of the old, but we got some new power on the scene that the white boys ain't got a hold to. Now we can really get some kick ass going on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I really want to get well, my man, he said he wanted to call it Tales from the Dark Side.
Good.
You know what I'm saying?
Ghetto Tales from the Dark Side.
A ghetto Tales from the Dark Side. So yeah. So yeah.
Wasn't fitting to put on the Baphomet.
Yeah, put on the Baphomet.
Necklace.
We gotta have that. We gotta have that.
Yeah.
So how'd you get into that, to the dark side?
Basically, all of this thing is, it's not wanting to be evil. It's not wanting to be like carve your own niche. Basically, it is wanting to know knowledge bad enough, or receive knowledge bad enough to know the truth, where you are not going to leave any stones unturned.
Okay.
I didn't get into the conscious movement for self-grandizement. I didn't start lecturing because I wanted to be a lecturer. I started lecturing because people chose me to do it.
Okay.
I had, and my sincerity was my credentials.
Mm-hmm.
So this means, because I'm not trying to make a name for myself, I could go in and treat the research with a certain eye that won't flinch when I see something that is contrary to what I believe or what I'm trying to put forth as a platform.
Okay.
That was not my my job. My job basically was to find the truth, no matter what or how hard it hurt.
Right.
At any cost. By any means necessary.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I got that.
So, in the research, it would lead to several things. And you go in and you unravel layers and layers and layers and layers. And the more and more your knowledge expands, the more and more the concepts of dogma, the concepts of indoctrination, the concepts of fear and ignorance unravels. And then you understand that knowledge is science and spirituality is science. And you should approach knowledge, the attainment of knowledge, and the understanding of spirituality the same way you would approach scientific analysis. You understand what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Now, if you got someone in science and something made this person gravely ill, and the only way you're going to find out what made this person gravely ill, the last resort was there was a piece of feces, shit, laying there, and you checked all of the body, but you know that the last thing or the last place this could be would be in that shit. Then you as a scientist know that you got to dissect that shit or that feces or that excrement, excrement, to get to the bottom of what you're trying to find. You wouldn't hesitate in science to do that.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? You wouldn't say, oh, this is stink, this is nasty. You understand what I'm saying? This is scientific. It's not moralistic. It's not grotesque. You understand what I'm saying? It has nothing to do with being proper etiquette. You see what I'm saying? It has nothing to do with being popular.
Right.
You see, so science and knowledge and spirituality is the same way. It's all one and the same. And when you separate it, then you put yourself at a deficit. You marginalize yourself. You see, and you no longer can have the opportunity to complete the full course. You see what I'm saying? So you have to you have to obliterate any possibility of something hindering you from getting to the truth. You see what I'm saying? So in the course of the studies, my goal, my ultimate goal, when I started out, now it's changed in the process of how I thought it might go down, but when I started out, my ultimate goal was to get to the bottom of freeing black people.
Okay.
Or either postulate the question, inquire and diligently research and detect and try to retrieve an answer. And if that is the only way you can do it, if that is the only thing that you are interested in, you will stop at nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? You will stop at nothing.
Nothing.
You see, a mother's going to make sure her child eats no matter what. So it's a matter of survival. So it has nothing to do with choice. In the aspect, you have no choice. You have to continue if you're honest with yourself. So it's pure of heart. So in the course of that, me knowing that I'm trying to get some type of breakthrough, the first level is to research history. And you have to research and try to find out, is there any way possible that our people can be liberated and liberated freely on the physical,
right,
social, economical, you see what I'm saying, and geographical level. And you research all of that.
Okay.
In 1990, me and a group of brothers from Clark Atlanta University, some of the brothers was in grad school, most of the brothers was finishing up, or was finishing up school. Some was already out. I was already out. But we used to live in this house near the campus, right up the street from the campus of Clark Atlanta University. And for an entire summer, we sat in that house, and we used to be up late night, early mornings, all day and all night, trying to find out solutions to get our people out of this horrible and wretched condition. You see what I'm saying? And we would ponder every type of solution there could be. And at this particular time, it was all based on, could we free black people physically?
Right.
So everybody had all of their types of stuff that they would do.
Right.
Well, I would get them out of this country. We'd take them to Brazil first, before they trained to go to Africa, because Brazil is climate is closely, and the tropical thing is closely related to Africa. So we would go to Brazil first before we go back to Africa. You know, just it might sound ridiculous, but we didn't. The group of brothers, 5 and 6 and 7 at a time, would try to find any possible scenario.
Okay.
You know, from economics to everything. And the more we pondered, the more difficult it became to find an ultimate solution to the physical.
Okay.
Because the more and more certain things made common sense, we would find other scenarios to say, this would not happen, this would not work in no circumstance. Certain things you have to figure.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? From everything from psychology, you see what I'm saying? Economics, geography, you see what I'm saying? And every move of what the enemy was going to make.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? What the enemy was going to make. And after about 2 or 3 years of studying all about the historical concepts, the political concepts, the revolutionary concepts, you became increasingly frustrated and angry, because remember now, not only are you plunged into this world of trying to find out a difference, your people's behavior is getting worse and worse and worse. Not necessarily just because you are pondering into it, but the more knowledge you have, the more sick you know these people are.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You see, you understand what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying.
So it becomes increasingly frustrated. But the whole time you're searching for breakthroughs.
Okay.
And the first question was asked, well, what are we going to do about black people? Well, the conclusion was made by me and a couple of other people that our answer was going to be a spiritual one more than it's going to be a physical one. We already knew that it was not going to be a religious one.
Right.
Because the Afrocentric and historical movement made sure that we come up out of that by unraveling that bullshit falsehood first. So we knew that the spiritual aspect was going to be rooted in that what we sought to replace religion with, and that was the ancient spiritual systems. The second aspect is we got to find out what is the ancient spiritual system, and if there is an ancient spiritual system, where is it, and does it still exist today?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
I got that.
So in this particular case, that led me to the New Age movement, the metaphysical movement, you see, and the occult realm. When we find this occult realm, we find out, number one, that it not only is it the Egyptian mystery system, the one that we were looking for, or the ancient indigenous African, Atlantean, Lemurian mystery system, that it is completely masked in European propaganda history.
Okay.
Totally whitewashed. All elements of race in African culture, in indigenous culture, completely wiped out. This is why these disciplines, for about 150 years, since white folks had a resurgence in bringing this stuff together for themselves, had went about completely unmasked, completely masked to anybody of indigenous culture, because they had carefully came in, you see, and sifted out indigenous ancient culture that would eventually lead to the most ancient of cultures and the most ancient of people, black people. Then systematically weave in negative connotations of the Africans and the Africans' magic with terms such as black magic, satanic, demonic. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Code words that since the emergence of world religions about 2,000 years ago brought forth this mind control and this propaganda machine that, number one, anything truly spiritual to begin with is evil. You see what I'm saying? That's the first level. Number two, anything that is spiritual and is more advanced, you see what I'm saying,
Right.
is completely satanic.
Mm.
You see. So, as you first enter into these disciplines, they start off with all of this light magic. These light disciplines.
Mm.
And as they become, when I'm saying light, they would equate light as good. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
With the lesser repertoire of these mysteries. But as you go into more sophisticated and more profound secrets that is beyond moralism.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Beyond wickedness. The very things that was beyond moralism, wickedness, would be in fact called wicked, dark, black. And meanwhile, it would also be a code that dark and black would actually be the dark people or the black people's magic.
Mm-hmm. That's the mystery.
That's the mystery.
That's the mystery.
One, black magic it is only because it's the black man's magic. Of the dark race's magic or science. We want to preface this because when I first started pondering these disciplines, and I even asked one of the white boys, why is all this stuff named magic? He said, you have to, first of all, define or what you think magic is.
Right.
What you think magic is, mostly is what you've been taught magic was all your life.
By somebody else.
Well, not only that, your concept of magic is different than what magic would mean in the ancient world. Magic in the modern world is tricks. So you know of David Copperfield, right. Doug Hennings. Right. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
David Blaine, Siegfried and Roy, and all kinds of illusionists. And that's not magic of the ancient world. Magic of the ancient world is a spiritual, scientific aspect of manipulating the laws of the universe and the elemental spirits around you. See what I'm saying? It is the highest form of science. From the physical to the metaphysical. You see what I'm saying? Not tricks. So you've been taught, number one, that magic has something to do with tricks, illusions. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And it has nothing to do with science. You see what I'm saying?
But can I ask you a point?
Yeah.
So, at this point, once you discovered that this was the direction that you needed to go, I mean, what then made you say, okay, well, let me go out here and do it? And were you actually doubtful about how this type of thing would be received, because it wasn't, starting to get dark? I don't think you imagined that it would be.
Well, first of all, I never really looked at it as something that I needed to give to the people and was interested in what they was receiving. This is, first of all, imperative for my own personal will to know, my need to know, my desire to know. You see what I'm saying? And I never went about this thing as what type of discipline that I'm going to dabble into that's going to be the correct thing to teach the people. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
It has nothing to do, or it had anything to do with some type of performance, some type of acceptance. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
It was the need to know, and it was going along the path and not hindering myself on the path of enlightenment, and being honest enough to turn over all stones and not be content with the first thing that I felt that was comfortable enough to call it the ultimate knowledge. And one of the motivating factors was, if I woke up the next morning and I was still here and my condition was the same, I would always have work to do until I would receive the proper results or the proper understanding, you see what I'm saying, of what was needed to be done. You get it?
Yeah.
So the criteria was not anything outside of my own personal search. And to the public, I would have to just report my research and my findings. You see what I'm saying?
I see.
One thing about it that I was sure from the beginning, that I didn't come to speak to the complete audience. Only those, you see what I'm saying, who was looking for answers also.
The elite.
Right. A circle within a circle within a circle.
Elect of the elect.
Yes. You see. So, number one, some of it is just basic warfare. If your enemy tells you not to go into something and to be careful of something
You probably should go into it.
and to stay away from something, not only should you probably go into it, you should run to it. He is your enemy.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. I get you.
Then, now, doing the historical aspect and just being in America from an ancient perspective and a modern perspective, you would have to be an idiot not to know who the damn idiot the enemy was. Make no bones about it. The enemy in the modern world, and every human on this planet should know who the enemy is. And that's white folks. Even if you are white, you should know that you shouldn't be comfortable with your own race. Well, other people do diabolical things too, but no, let's make it be, let's let this be perfectly clear. The people that run this earth, now not the Arabs, not the Asians, definitely not the Africans. It is the Europeans. You understand what I'm saying? That is a fact.
Right.
And anybody else that think otherwise is in a grave illusion. You see what I'm saying? You know, it's an illusion. You know. And the more and more the enemy insists that you turn away from something, the more and more you need to look into that. And then the magic really starts, the mystery really starts. Because not only are you going to find out that this man is the enemy, you're going to find out that he is the little enemy. He is not the ultimate conspirator. He is only a pawn in the game of some forces that's much greater than him. And those forces themselves would be the very same gods that we was taught and would learn to trust in with all our lives.
Well, if you seem to have this split between, you know, people are always trying to talk about, you have your white magic and your black magic, that type of thing, and you went toward that a little bit earlier. But what I mean is, so why does it have to be dark? You know what I mean? I mean, in this world, in this time, why, if you're going to be practicing your magic, why does it have to be dark? Or why is there a need for it to be dark? Why do we need to understand that?
What we're dealing with here is people categorizing things. And then the categorization becoming even more distorted. You see what I'm saying? People labeling things. And then that itself, after time goes on, would get to be misunderstood. You see. So, what used to be bleach, water, you see what I'm saying? Fire, air, you see. Paper, steel, polarities in different degrees. Science will later on become theological things like wicked and that type of evil. You know, categorize that. So we're talking about something that is highly scientific and really has nothing to do with moralism and anything personal, but just understanding the nature of the way the earth works. Nature itself is a series of changes. Some of these changes very violent. See what I'm saying? And the misunderstanding when you categorize things, and later on people would misunderstand things, is the same scenario I'm getting ready to give you. If someone or some woman giving birth to a child,
Right.
violent birth to a child, muscles is ripping, blood is spewing, she's hollering, pain is all around you. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Which is a necessary and a common function in just nature itself. And someone coming in and taking the experience of childbirth, mythologizing it into something negative and evil. See what I'm saying?
I do.
It's no different than the standard human, which is the stock human, the standard human, the prototype human, which was black people around the earth. Later on, our own physical features would be recategorized as ugly. No difference. We can look at a pattern of our history and see that our own very lives as a people that are the teachers of humanity looked upon as not even being human, looked upon as not even being competent. You see what I'm saying? Looked upon as not even being adequate. Get where I'm coming from here?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same particular concept when it comes to this wide body of knowledge. Someone coming in, you see what I'm saying? And seeing pimples break out of a teenager's face based on hormones that's going through puberty. And they're looking and saying, that is evil and wicked whenever you see those pimples and that acne on teenager's face. And we know we have a whole group of people, because we're just talking about basically ignorance. The ancient Egyptians and ancient Canaanites said that evil is ignorant.
Yep.
Ignorance is evil. And we know we've had history of Europeans that's being ignorant of things and judging people because of it. They hung, maligned, killed, plundered all over the world things that they didn't understand. They labeled as evil, abnormal, unusual, all because of ignorance. You know what I'm saying? All because of ignorance.
Right.
You see? So it's easy if we can see aspect after aspect and example of our regular lives, how things can be misunderstood over a course of time and ignorance. That when it comes to magic or a greater level of science, you see what I'm saying? That not only would be misconstrued based on ignorance, but also a conspiracy to hide the truth and to keep the higher knowledge away from the masses and from certain groups that lost it. And those groups are now, which is us black people, unpopular with the society. You see what I'm saying? That holds those groups captive. And as subjects.
Right.
You get it?
Right.
Got that.
Got that.
So, as a result, the first thing we got to start with was in the aspect of removing the ultimate fear. If we're not dealing with religion anymore, then we must ask this question. Then what the hell is Satan? And why the object or the adversary of religion, since we're not dealing with religion anymore, then what is the origin of this? You see what I'm saying? And one of the first clues was when I heard Dr. Charles Finch say, before I even studied it in General Massey and did my own research, it just a light came on in my head. He said that the Hyksos are a group of Egyptians were Set worshippers.
Yep.
But I said, wait a minute, hold on. Number one, because the Afrocentric movement was saying that Set was the devil.
Right.
So here's the first mistake. They're taking modern mindset, terminologies, you see what I'm saying, and methods of research and thought, and trying to understand ancient thought and mindset. And you cannot understand the ancient model with the modern model. You can understand more of the modern model by researching your ancient past, but you can definitely not understand the ancient model from the modern model. So the Afrocentric movement approached this thing the wrong way. They saw Horus and Set, or Osiris and Set, and automatically assumed that Set Typhon was the devil and all that goes with him. You see. So the first thing happened was, because I had been taught a few years that Set Typhon was the devil of Set, and we learned to look at him as the devil, and then we heard, the first thing I heard was the Hyksos were Set worshippers, or there were groups of Egyptians as Set worshippers. And then the light comes on in the head. Well, why would anybody worship Set? That's the first aspect. Then, if the Egyptians or the Kamites were supposed to be more advanced than the people we would ever see again on the earth, then why are they stupid enough to worship Set?
Well, they do it, right.
Or was Set something totally different than what the modern man is thinking it was? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
What the modern man was thinking it was.
Okay.
And the works of Gerald Massey would be the greater explanation of it. Ancient Egypt, Light of the World, the last books, 1907. Natural Genesis, the middle books, 1888. And the first volume, because all of them are 2 volume sets, volume 1 and volume 2. And the first 2 volumes, Book of the Beginnings, 1881. Which is the very same scholarship that Charles Finch was getting his information from. You see.
Right.
Which explained not a world of good and evil, but a world of politics. One priesthood usurping the other priesthood. In this case, the latter priesthood usurping the earlier priesthood and degrading or systematically leveling their chief god or chief system of philosophy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you find out this is political. Then all of a sudden, and this is the origin of what is evil. We don't have anything older than Set as the primordial devil. Then you will understand that this is a 5,000 year or no later than 3,000 year odyssey that was in fact started long before white folks even got on the planet, or either was even able to even talk. You see what I'm saying? That later on would get out of hand and would be the overriding tool or scope of religion, good versus evil. Then we got to ask the question, then what is this evil?
Right.
If it's not the wicked in the moral aspect, what is the scientific aspect of this evil? It simply is the primordial activity and functions of that which existed before creation. Doesn't make it bad. You see what I'm saying? It is that which is prior to creation. You see?
That you meaning that life.
That life, that system.
Well, isn't it kind of ironic that live is part of evil? If you turn it
That's
around.
right. You can go as far as to say that not only is it that before creation, that it was set up a pattern that evil would be that is prior to anything modern. That would be a pattern that would repeat itself throughout history. We could just take Egyptian civilization,
Right.
and just in the dynastic period, we're talking about millions of years after creation in the dynastic period, they make something evil out of that preceded it,
Now why?
which was the
No,
earlier priesthood.
now why did they do that?
It is an age-old question that haunts man. And the ultimate one is simply ignorance. The misunderstanding of something that might be a little more remote that you can contemplate. And they say over and over again, that which the later generations could not understand, they swept in a trash pile of moralism, of evil and wicked. So the Typhonian Egyptians, which is pre-dynastic Egyptians, become evil to the dynastic Egyptians. Several schools later, a Hebrew sect, which is Egyptians, would label all of Hemmitt evil or Egyptian evil. And a Christian sect, which spawns out of a combination of different groups, but of that time and later on labeled Hebrew evil. And a Muslim sect that is a direct derivative of lineage of the Christian and the Hebrew will later on name Christianity evil. And all modern concepts of what is called religion will later on name all the ancient world evil. So first it started out with priesthood of scientific views, leveling the other aspect because they didn't understand certain practices that had gone on thousands of years before.
Right.
Meanwhile, you must understand this. This is not just a few years in contriving or making this thing happen. This is thousands of years. We're talking about the pre-dynastic aspect would be equivalent to almost maybe 10,000 years compared to the dynastic. It's just that old. So it is natural for them to come on the scene and things deteriorate or certain mysteries of knowledge or misunderstandings. The knowledge would be lost and misunderstandings would occur that they would start calling the other ones evil. Or we can go on to say this, that we exacerbated it more by not understanding that even those in the ancient world might have not been talking about the same kind of evil that we're talking about here. Because it is interesting here that all of the pharaohs that we look at, they're always standing between Horus and Set. And if they're standing between Horus and Set, then we ask this particular question. Were these polarities? Or was it wicked? Now, if we take the modern concept of religion, and we would have God and the archangels as we dare not call it a pantheon, because they're supposed to be monotheistic.
Right.
But we know that the archangels used to be the pantheon of the letters.
Right.
We would take these archangels, and they would be in the court of God. God, Jesus, the archangel.
Okay.
And you would call that the heaven realm. By no means would that pantheon ever have Satan among them present. Well, why is it that we can take the same Egyptian pantheon and Set is always present in the lineup of gods?
Yep. Sure is.
Then obviously, we're even looking at this thing from a standpoint of not understanding that they didn't view this same wickedness and these taboos of uncertainties and fear when it came to their deities.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
At least the high priest didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Now there might have been some tricks played on the common folk, but which in this particular case the common folks can't never understand nothing no way.
Mm-hmm.
You see. So now we are unraveling these things, and we've gotten beyond the spookism of understanding science at its core. That dark simply means, number one, more powerful, more ancient. You see what I'm saying? And ultimately, the doorway. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, the enemy, both the gods and the adversary on earth, you see, want to keep you away from it.
So then if we understand that, then, so how now are we supposed to apply it against the enemy or to live then?
Well, going deeper into the endeavors of knowledge, you find out even greater mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
That there's really no enemy. There's only role-playing and illusions set up by the architects or the gods in heaven that are pulling the strings in the first place. And you ultimately find out that those particular gods in the heavens no longer exist. And in so many words, the only enemy is the ignorance of our own mind.
Wow.
But I mean, that sounds like, I mean, that old, the Zeus shit, where, you know, where the gods were manipulating the lives of the people.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, but what about? But is now here? What are the white folks our enemy?
Huh?
White people. I mean,
They are. Let's take the movie The Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
They know that there was a grand architect. You saw the big white man with the beard.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that architect would be when you would figure out who he was he would be the actual person that's responsible for these illusions. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, his army was the agents. Mm-hmm. So one is the extension of the other. In this case, the Europeans are one of the extensions of the demiurge, and although that demiurge and those particular entities of those forces now no longer have the power, and some are even dead, his extension is still permeating the planet. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And in this particular case, it is the European. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It is the European.
Meaning they're the agents.
They're the agents, and not only they're the agents, they set up a system now that make the subjects, which would be the original people caught in this mess, enemies. And not only did they set up a system in later life, the human system itself set up by the architect of these gods in the heavens that no longer exist is also a form of the enemy. So humanity itself is the enemy. And that, my friend, is the ultimate riddle on why you would label things dark in the first place. It's a conspiracy for the modern man or the modern adversary to keep you out of something, is to tell you that it is wicked. And it is a conspiracy in the aspect of the greater scheme of things of the people who set up this earth, is to always keep man himself away from the mysteries that those gods, a set of gods, would also be evil. And the earth itself, existence itself, can also be evil. I know I'm going way ahead of myself.
No, it ties in though.
But it all ties in.
Yeah.
We just urge people to, sometimes things line up this way because we urge people to never be satisfied with getting everything off of one tape. But we got enough information. I have enough tapes. And there's clearly enough books out here to understand the greater aspect of what I'm trying to put forth.
Okay.
What I'm trying to put forth.
Okay. Well, just one little thing I want you to clear up.
Yeah.
Though. So when you say the architect, does that? So what? Somebody started this shit and then they just poofed. You know what I mean? And then this spirit left, affected these white people in such a way that they decided they wanted.
Well, I think that's kind of premature. We have to go all the way back to the beginning of this, prior to the earth aspect, because this didn't start with the world that we know. This started in the heavens. This started in the origin. It started in the primordial abyss.
Okay.
Or the womb.
Okay, I understand.
Where you would actually have a renegade or a tyrant that would be a tyrant of a universal primordial family, breaking away and trying to create a universe of its own outside of the original source. Botches the job, but nevertheless creates a simulation of the original source, which can only be acted out as a series of illusions to support this debauchery. And the ultimate deterioration of misfortune is that the very essence or light particles or souls that is in the primordial world or the original source will eventually get trapped in this cosmic abortion that was set up by this tyrant, and would have to be a part of this tyrannical creation for years to eventually clean this shit up.
Okay.
That would make the original source greater than the original source was, that would have a flaw in it to even create a tyrant that would break away from the original source. And it would never fall again. So in so many words, we're only talking about creation sifting out flaws of its own
self,
essence,
essence,
to make a greater and perfected product.
Gotcha.
Now,
so many words from the beginning.
Yeah.
There was no perfection.
Yes. That's why they call it chaos.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Now, that was the scientific element. The other element was you had a great mother. She had a son on abortion who didn't stay in long enough to form itself to maturity, that jumps ship, comes down and creates its own childlike world like a child would do. Right. A child's world is going to be different than an adult's world. The adult's world is going to be more fortified. You see what I'm saying? And more to the essence.
It sounds a little bit like...
And the essence. But the child's world is going to be a play world or an illusionary world. Well, whatever this particular person that would later on be called God by the very parents that it would later on trap in this world. It's like a cancer in the original body succumbing to a cancer, though benign in the beginning, malignant in the end. You see?
Yeah, gotcha.
And then set up a series of creations within the context of creation and in the context of a man and woman or life that is started in this counterfeit creation would set up a series of events and struggles to get back to the original source. The rest is history.
Mm.
You see.
Damn. That's it in a nutshell.
Yes.
That's it in a nutshell.
You made it clear.
Any questions?
Wow. So, with the original set, and I know there's different. You said the pre-dynastic period, then it's the dynastic period. So you saying that in the dynastic period, the Kamites in the dynastic period was basically ignorant.
That's one aspect of it. I do you one better.
Mm-hmm.
One aspect of it is a history of people, the latter, becoming ignorant of the former.
Okay.
One aspect is a direct movement
Mm-hmm.
of cosmic forces that wants to sustain its abortion and inadequate creation, directly affecting a solution put into that abortion that would ultimately correct that abortion or that debauchery.
Okay.
So we also have a history of a group of conspirators, cosmic conspirators, called the Archons, the Demiurge. All this is in your Nag Hammadi library.
Okay.
Stuff dug up in 1945 in ancient Hemmitt, which is later day Coptic Kamite philosophy that is actuality the translated philosophy of the Metanetta into the Coptic.
Mm.
If we finally get what the Pharaonic thought is really talking about, when we get it closer to a modern aspect of languages that later on will even lead to English, Latin, Greek, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Aramaic, Hebrew, all the modern languages and stuff like that. You see what I'm saying? But we call that Nag Hammadi research, what the ancient person called it Gnosticism.
Okay.
Get Kirk Rudolph's book, Gnosis.
Gnosis.
I think it's Kirk Rudolph. As well as Bentley Layton's Gnostic Scripture, the Nag Hammadi Library, and so many books on Gnosticism, which is this modern day Egyptian.
Okay.
You know, so we're talking about actual pharaonic thought that in its hieroglyphic form it would be in fragments or either in lockdown in some museums of white folks, but in its Coptic form it's the same pharaonic thought. It just changed the language based on a later day way of communication.
Okay.
Coptic.
Okay.
Coptic. You see what I'm saying? But the movement is called Gnosticism. You see,
Okay.
which is fused into Hebrew, Christianity, and a variation of the modern religions.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? On that particular aspect. So we always have this cosmic struggle, both on the earth plane and in the human lives
Okay.
and in the spirit plane. But what is the end result of these two planes? And that's what we need to understand. It sets up two worlds. The world of the dark world is the solution that is put into this this debauchery to ultimately diffuse it and perfect it. And that's your dark side.
Right.
Because the dark side is really those individuals that got trapped in this debauchery of a creation. You see what I'm saying? And ultimately start set up a series of philosophies and studies that will be the solution to diffusing this debauchery and abortion and counterfeit creation. That would ultimately be what your dark side is. And your light side would be supported by the counterfeit or the debauchery of a creation, giving you another type of philosophy to sustain the counterfeit and the debauchery and the conspiratorial counterfeit reality known as the Matrix, Maya, illusion, hell, imprisonment. You see? And your dark side would be the very thing that would free you, which is the complete truth of the conspiracy. That would systematically, historically, over and over again repeat itself as being evil or being named evil. So in this case, you'd have a complete opposite. That which is bad or named bad is actually good, or the solution. And that which is named good is a deterrence. You see what I'm saying?
I got you.
A distraction.
I got you.
A containment and a incarceration. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
From the solution. Get it?
Got it.
Evil.
You see? This is the basis of what modern religions are made up off of.
All of this shit is an illusion. So, damn. So it's almost like, to me, it's almost like the phrase, curiosity killed a cat.
Yeah.
As far as this whole universal scheme of creation and what I got out of it, and I've been pondering on it myself, as far as like, is it the sparks of the intelligence that's there in the chaos that makes this illusionary universe? I mean,
no, it is the flaw of the chaos that makes this the illusionary universe. It is the sparks of intelligence, or what they call the shards of the chaos, that will bring light and diffuse the flaw. You see what I'm saying?
So basically it's the flaw.
It's the flaw.
It's the flaw.
And this creation that we find ourselves trapped in is nothing but a cosmic journey of diffusing the flaw, or the flaw burning itself out, the flaw disintegrating.
It's almost like a science experiment. This is what I'm getting out of it. Like a science experiment, and basically you're gonna test it out to get rid of, to find out what it really is, what the problem really is, to get rid of the problem.
Right.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, in so many words, yes.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Or it's like a cleaning crew coming in to a vile and filthy situation gone bad and start to clean up. You see? But the source and the origin of the vile and filthy creation gets in a struggle, and every time they wipe up something, the source dirties it back up, and it's this cosmic struggle. Meanwhile, the source, because it got there first,
Right.
not being the first in creation or the first in that ever was, but it was the first to come into this environment and create the problem. But by it being the first there, the time is running out on it, because the ones behind them are a little behind to clean it up, but they got a little more energy because they didn't spend that energy by getting there first.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a catch-up thing.
All right.
That has to happen. But ultimately, we catch up.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I got you.
So what has become, in my search to unravel the truth, it first started off with something as mundane and social and political as saving black people, as just trying to correct your environment around you, and ultimately of unraveling from the social, the political, and all of these things fall off to the spiritual. Then the spiritual unraveling itself out of moralism and into science, and science unraveling itself off into the core of it. We ultimately find the ultimate solution, that this thing goes far beyond even race, because when this was put in place, the white man wasn't even on the doggone planet. And this was a group of black people that was under the behest of the cosmic archons. And they called them counterfeit spirits. So so the original counterfeit spirits, let me give you the example.
Okay.
When the cosmic abortion and all this went along, not only did the Great Mother try to correct it, when these particular spirits were trapped down in this particular aspect of this debauchery, ultimately they knew that those spirits, by them coming from the source of the divine, they would be the cleanup factor. So when the debauchery itself found out that in actuality that the spirits that it trapped would ultimately be greater than it created counterfeit spirits to come in and confuse the situation. So when the grand man or the grand pristine superior deity came in to clean up this stuff, which would be the origin of who we are, they also created a group of counterfeit spirits that will always be antagonistic with those so-called true indestructible spirits. And this element of antagonism will go back and forth, at first with people that look the same, but they're separated from a single essence. One is the true spirit and one is the counterfeit. And later on, out of those counterfeit spirits, they would create another agent, which would be the white man. So when you ask the question, well, if black people created the white man, shouldn't they be responsible? And the white man can't be blamed. But what you don't understand, the white man was created by those counterfeit spirits.
Wow.
That the gods was pulling the strings to make those counterfeit spirits, these scientists,
So black people
create this white man.
So black people, is that to say black people didn't have anything to do with it?
No,
But they
you're
were
not
guys.
listening. You got two people. You got two people. You got an original spirit that comes from the source of the Great Mother beyond the debauchery.
Okay.
Then you have the debauchery that creates its counterfeit spirit, to confuse the spirits, the spirits to do its evil work in maintaining the debauchery with these counterfeit spirits. But both of them look the same. They're all black.
Okay.
And those particular black ones, these counterfeit spirits, would later on result in creating the white man, who would be the modern counterfeit spirit.
Yeah, I got you.
But the original counterfeit spirits were black, which leads to this question that I have held back for over 10 years of putting forth, that we put forth now. Are some of those counterfeit spirits still in existence?
That's my question. That was my next question.
Well, I'm going to break it down right now, and it's going to be unpopular. It's going to be very unpopular. But I will say this. If they are in existence, most of them still resides in Africa. Do the math.
That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Out of Egypt I will call my son. We will sift out the right particles. They say this cosmic drama is like a fisherman fishing in the ocean. Some fish that are ripe are pulled out. The other ones that are not are thrown back in. You see what I'm saying? Some people that look like us are not of us.
Right.
That's the great mystery. But I do know one thing. These texts that are fundamentally African, that talk about these counterfeit spirits, the dates and the time that they said the counterfeit spirits came, which was shortly after creation, the white man wasn't even on the planet.
Nowhere around.
There had to be two kind of Africans.
So then they got, like you said, made.
And the ones based on the Osirian drama, which means the Great Westerner, that would be the ripe one. So when you get the word righteous, it means ripe. To be the ripe one would end up in the West. Because the Camite texts say it would be the Westerner that would establish Mayat. Well, Mayat is not just some physical laws and order that the courtroom and judicial system is made out of. It is the very essence of putting back right that cosmic abortion. It's called the tikkun in Kabbalah. It's called Mayat in Hemmitt. And basically it means transmutation, transformation. It's an alchemical process of fermentation. That's why Jesus said, I am of the wine. Dionysus is of the wine. Osiris is of the wine. And it has to sift out a new product from the original. That's what alchemy is, taking something original and making something new out of it. But those new souls had to be sifted out of or called out of a confusion of counterfeit spirits. Some of those left behind. And then you understand why we don't seem to be of a certain people that we were all in the same origin of at one time. See what I'm saying? Some powerful shit.
Damn.
You know what I'm saying? But this ain't about no popularity contest. We urge people to study. You see what I'm saying? Some amazing stuff.
Deep.
Yeah.
Wow.
That gets into a little bit of what the sits and stuff and the which about the grafting and
Yeah, you just got to take it all and put it back in the African court.
right.
And then you find out in actuality
right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So you see the Egyptians
Right.
having Africans tied up on the walls and the temple walls.
Wow.
Then you find out in actuality that there was some people understanding that there was this cosmic battle of this earthly terrestrial battle
Right.
between two different spirits.
Right.
And that's when you see the Norma tablet and the smiting scenes on the walls and temples, and you see these great wars that go on before white people get on the scene. It's a battle between the counterfeit spirits and the true spirits. And then it gets even worse, which asks the question when we first started off about Typhonian versus Amun, or the dynastic. The Typhonians end up being blamed and called the counterfeit spirits, and so forth and so on. It's real mixed up.
Right. Right.
Yeah, the story changes.
It changes, and it's real confusing. You just got to understand the principles, because the political thing can be confusing. But we do know now, in the latter part, you understand that obviously the hell we went through, that we got to be the true particles.
We gotta be.
Because, no, we are the true particles for the mere fact that I'm talking about this shit.
Right.
Yeah.
You see,
Right.
it's amazing.
Yeah. So, how would you know, or do you have the information on how do you know what is a counterfeit spirit, or how can you tell?
It's too ancient. It's too ancient to even contemplate. But we will know the counterfeit spirits. We know that majority of the later counterfeit spirits, whites, have a greater stock. The majority of them.
Right.
It's hard to tell, even in Africa, because not all people on the continent are counterfeit spirits.
Right.
Because they didn't take everybody out of Africa.
Right.
And this has got to come when ultimately the energies are lifted from the spiritual shells that would even hide these things.
Right.
And those energies lifted, the ones that are only spiritual, because spirit is different than the souls. Those that are only spiritual will dissipate and disintegrate.
Okay.
Those who have the true souls will be the true primordial sparks that were sent in to clean up the debauchery.
Okay.
You see.
So
That's how we would know.
okay. So just for example, some of the Uncle Tom, Negroes, bootlicking motherfuckers like.
It's really kind of unfair and hard to use that as an analysis, as an analogy, because we got a cosmic drama going on here, and it's always a fight.
Okay.
Now it has been brought to my attention, and it's logical, even in my research, that Uncle Tom's a lot of time, if you look at a bigger picture of what's going on.
Okay.
If you look at the smaller picture, it's sad. But if you look at a bigger picture, Uncle Tom's a lot of times were necessary. Because we do know that although we couldn't tell what kind of enemies were in the African skin,
Right.
you could damn sure tell what kind of enemies, what it was between black and white, and we just so happened to be, you understand what I'm saying, on the receiving end of ass whippings,
Right.
losing the war at that particular time. But we understood that the white boy went in fear of knowing that one day this earth would belong to us. So to keep him pacified, a lot of times the Uncle Tom was necessary, because if the white man wasn't so sure that he had the black man in check based on the Uncle Toms, he would have killed us all in our vulnerable state. So the Uncle Tom was a buffer zone, not for the white man to have supremacy over us, but it was a buffer zone for us to also have protection by a person that is paranoid, xenophobic, you know,
Right.
which is a fear of other races. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Sexist in all ways, and a warlike creature, a warfare maniac. So this particular Uncle Tom's a lot of time were pacifiers, and they act as decoys
Okay.
to keep them from massacring all of us, because we know he's capable of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
He's done it to other parts of our race before.
Right.
But they had to be, the ones in the West had to be protected. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So therefore that was a part of warfare again. Strategies.
Okay.
Keep your enemies close.
Right.
Keep your friends close.
Oh,
Keep your enemies closer.
Closer. I got
Yeah.
that. So, I've heard you for a number of years. I've heard you talk about AWAS
Uh-huh.
and slaves of AWAS,
Yeah.
things of that nature. And when you was talking about the white man or the Uncle Tom being a decoy, it kind of reminded me of that great spirit of AWAS, and how AWAS, I heard you use the term slaves of AWAS.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it kind of like put me in a mind frame of dealing with that particular energy of how AWAS or that particular energy use them in so many words, because now we get to the point where I think we had this conversation the other day about how the white man is really dumb.
Mm-hmm.
He's really not as smart.
No.
He's really not smart at all. So then when you're dealing with the counterfeit spirits, then
Sometimes they need to be manipulated
right. That's exactly what I was going with that.
into working for us.
Mm-hmm.
Haphazardly, in the aspect that they might not be aware of it, but because of their nature is they wouldn't dare do it. Sometime in the grand scheme of things, they need to be manipulated. Just like the side who had us slavery in the spirit world manipulated us to do certain deeds
Right.
and things to under the behest or to secure their existence or maintain their existence. We also our side manipulate the people in power a lot of times to do certain things, because the people who are the subjects of the people in power are too vulnerable to do it. So therefore, it's a tug of war between these particular principalities in the spirit world.
Right.
And AWAS being a form of Horus,
Right.
and an agent or an angel on our side manipulated Europeans a lot of times. You see what I'm saying? And not just AWAS, it was probably other agents
Right.
or spirits or angels on our side that had to manipulate Europeans to do the bidding. In so many words, and give you an example, all this work that we left behind, all these ancient texts that we would need in the future, that we had gone into slavery and sleep, when we came out, we would need these texts.
Okay.
But we were in a stupor state of sleep, and we couldn't translate these texts a lot of times, or preserve these texts, let's put it this way, because we translated them before we went to sleep. So we would have a history of putting them in the hands even of the enemy. And the enemy thinking that he is doing good by himself and his people, by preserving these texts, they would ultimately be preserving them for us in a bigger picture of things. And this is the way that we kept certain amount of knowledge on the planet moving.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Even when we were too sick to maintain our own information, we use the custodians, which happened to be at that particular time the enemy, to preserve our stuff while we were in a stupor state, so that we would have this particular information when we would come out of our sleep and is ready to regain and attain our knowledge. So here goes again a cosmic drama.
Always.
Of two principalities battling. One against us and one for us. Setting up stuff. Even down to the scriptures that would be used by the counterfeit spirits and the other side to even shut down the so-called true beings and malign them as being evil and dark. There would also be manipulation from the dark side or the true side, manipulating scriptures also in the same books, so that we could also find in the popular texts of later that would malign the dark side, we would also find things contrary to that in the same books. So even when you look in these scriptures that are used for propaganda against the so-called true beings to incarcerate us, you will also find in those same texts,
That's right,
truths and mysteries that was put in by both sides. They talk about that in the book, The Secret Books of the Egyptian Gnostics by Jean Duress, where they talk about one side creating falsehood in the scribe writing these scriptures, and the other battle of another principality of thought creating the truth and hiding it also within the same scriptures of falsehood that is used to keep a spawn of ignorance, enlightenment, and jewels all through those particular scriptures in a cosmic battle between manipulating man to ultimately win the ultimate battle. You see what I'm saying? What side's gonna rule? In this case, we win in it.
we will.
Because the side that ultimately would win was the true source of energies that was not a part of the debauchery or the childlike play world, the illusionary world. And that which is not an illusion ultimately has to exacerbate, a better word would be annihilate that which is the illusion, or diffuse that of the illusion. It's an amazing thing.
Very amazing. Very, very amazing. Wow. Serious stuff. So, it was good, man. I'm glad I had a chance to talk with you, get this information on tape to get out to the people around the world. And,
That's right.
And it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
As always.
It's been a gateway, and might I add, we're talking to the people in the geographical location of the gateway to the west, where east meets west.
Right.
St. Louis, Missouri.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? Which is a gateway.
Okay.
And especially a gateway for black people. Because if we making it one, if other forces had some other aspect of the expansion of the Western white man in manifest destiny, little does he know that that was also the divine cosmic plot of the original Camite people to even name the god Osiris the Great Westerner.
Wow.
It all comes together.
Yep. The mystery unfolds.
That's right.
The mystery unfolds.
Yeah.
All right.
It's truly been a blessing to come. And this whole 3 or 4 days, it's been more of a festival. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or a summit.
Mm-hmm.
You see, in building the capstone that would ultimately create the plateau of our rise, which is being, as we speak, put together and finalized and completed in the other world, in the other dimension that ultimately will be our home. You see what I'm saying? As we talk, they're working day and night to put this thing together. And we are only reporting good news because the long fight has already been done, because just as I've been doing research to understand, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Our souls are in the other aspect, having a great gathering, you see, and a great rise. We are just only reporting in this realm what is going on in the other realm. You see what I'm saying? As we speak.
Fine.
You know.
That's right.
Yes.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yep.
So, one more question.
Yeah.
Now, since the war is won,
Yeah.
I don't even know if you have an answer to this. But it came upon me, I'm like, okay, now that the war is won, and we're going back into the original state.
Original perfected state.
Perfected state this time.
Yeah.
So now that we are going to be perfected,
Yes.
none of this will happen again.
None of this will happen again. That was all a part of ultimately when we fell, the great mother of the original source made the decision that this is good, change is good. Change brings about completion. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So therefore, it was a debauchery and an abomination and a departing of the original source. But on another aspect, it was also, you see, a cleansing, a purification, a setting right. You see what I'm saying? In a perfecting mode of that originally went wrong. The wrong that originally occurred was good because the flaw showed itself. The mold showed itself. And so therefore, the potential and the opportunity to perfect, you see what I'm saying, was made. And all was good. You see.
So it's going back to like that movie, The One, with Jet Li, when the gathering,
Right.
of basically the one true soul on many dimensions or whatever, come back as one.
Exactly.
As one.
Exactly.
Nothing is offended by nothing.
Yes. But unlike the Matrix, when you see Zion as this dismal place, which the Zion of the underworld for most of this history of the earth was this dismal and gloomy place. That is not going to be the end result on how it would end up. It's going to be an illumined and a perfected place. We won't be walking around in dirty clothes. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And I know they got to show certain things to illustrate points in the movie. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But the movie should have showed one last scene of what would become of Zion after it was freed from the Matrix. You see? And that's what we are going to experience. which they call it a crystal city in the sky.
Mm.
You see?
So the suffering Christ is resurrected.
Yes.
I got that.
And ultimately, the crystal city in the sky, the ark, the ship, the chariot, is nothing but emanations of your own soul.
Mm.
That's what the ships really are.
Wow.
That's what the crystal city really is.
So it's like you going to live in the soul.
In the soul.
Like inverting.
The soul itself
Mm.
will be its own essence.
Mm. Wow.
You see.
Wow.
So there's no way that you cannot get on this ship because you are the ship.
Mm.
Some amazing shit.
Amazing. Amazing.
You know.
Wow.
And why wouldn't it be as beautiful for us? God knows we suffered. You see what I'm saying? To witness and be a part of this damn beautiful tale.
Mm-hmm.
And the end result. You see.
Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
I'm telling you.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Yep. Appreciate you.
All right.
All right.
Signing off, Brother Bobby Hemmitt. Get the tapes.